staying on top of things. You've got to be organized if you want to be a great Scrum Master. You've got to have great communication skills. You've got to have people skills. You've got to have empathy as well towards people. Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Opayemi. I blog about finance, career, motherhood, and lifestyle. So welcome and thank you for clicking on the video. And if you are a returnee, you probably would have heard me say that I'm a Scrum Master, and this is a highly requested video. So a lot of people have been asking me to talk about, how to become a Scrum Master, what do Scrum Masters do, and pretty much, just learning about Scrum and all of that stuff. So this is a highly requested video, and I'm gonna actually break this video down into series, just so this video is not extremely long. So let's get right into the video. All right, so before I can talk about how to be a Scrum Master and what Scrum Masters do and how to get into Scrum, if you are wondering, how do I get into tech, right, without actually being technical, right? How do I get a tech role that does not require in-depth technical skills, right? Or what kind of jobs can I do as a in tech that would not require coding or in-depth technical skills? Being a Scrum Master is one of it. Being a project manager is another one, and being a product manager as well. And maybe being a BA as well. Depends on the level of technical debt or technical requirement that job might need. But being a Scrum Master is certainly one, right? So I'm going to be talking about all of that. So first, before we talk about how to get a job as a Scrum Master, we want to talk about what Scrum is first, right? Who's a Scrum Master and what Scrum is. So I'm going to pretty much start off by defining what talking about the SDLC, which is Software Development Life Cycle, right? If you are into tech or you've been in the tech industry, or even if you've never been into tech before, maybe you might have heard about software development life cycle, right? Okay, so pretty much software development life cycle from software. What is software, right? That part that we can see, right? We cannot touch it, we cannot feel it, but we can see it. And the hardware is that part of the whole computer system that we can touch, we can feel, right? So that's pretty much the difference, right? So software will be, for instance, like a website, right? Will be a software, an operating system, like your operating system, the iOS and all of that stuff. Those are softwares, right? They make your computer, they make your mobile phone, they make them functional. And then the hardware will be, your actual phone. Like for instance, my phone right here. The part where I can touch right here is the hardware, right? And then the screen, everything that's going on here, my ability to, go from one to another, to operate on the phone, to go on mobile sites, to go on websites, those will be the software, pretty much the ones that, I can see, but I cannot touch. So there are two different components, right, of a system, the hardware and the software. So when it comes to software development life cycle, pretty much self-explanatory. It's the process of making a software, of creating a software, bringing a software into reality. And you as a Scrum Master, you need to understand the basics. So if you want to get a job as a Scrum Master, you need to understand the basics of this. So pretty much SDLC is the process, is how we create software. We bring software to life, right? That is what SDLC is, software development life cycle, how we bring it to life, right? So pretty much that's what it is, right? Just like as humans, right? What's the human life cycle, right? From sex, conception, pregnancy. The pregnancy grows for 9 months, and then the mother, births the baby, and then nurture the baby, and then the baby grows. That's a human life cycle. For software as well, we've also got a life cycle of the entire process, how we bring it to life. That's pretty much what it is. Different methodologies, that's what we call them, right, of software development life cycle. So different ways that we can bring software to life, right? Different ways of producing software. One is a very popular one, which is waterfall, and the other one is Agile, right? Those are the two most popular. There are probably other ones, but they are not as popular as waterfall and Agile. And Agile is fast becoming very popular. Waterfall pretty much is a way of developing software, and there are different phases of software development life cycle, right? We've got requirement gathering, where we talk about what we want to produce, right? We've got the design phase, right? We've got the development phase, right? We've got the testing phase, and we've got the maintenance phase. I'm probably missing out one phase, right? But we've got, and you can Google it Google will help you, and you'll be able to learn better and go in depth with all of these different steps, right? So we've got all of those things. We've got the implementation phase, we've got the maintenance phase. So I think I got all of them right now. For waterfall and agile, right, all of those phases, they're required. Still the same, nothing changes. It's just the process of doing that. So with waterfall says that we have to finish one phase before we can begin another. Right, so we have to finish, the requirements before we can start design, before we can start developing, before we can start implementation, before we can go into maintenance. Like, we have to finish everything, which sometimes with the changing market, right? With the changing market, our end users, their taste, their needs are constantly changing. You and I are the end users, we're the consumers. Our needs are constantly changing, right? And this companies, this tech companies, this organizations, this federal government organization, state government, depending on who the client is, they need to stay on top of the needs of the consumers, right? Because our needs are constantly changing, right? And the people who are able to stay in this market are the ones, right, who have the mind of the users, right? And those are the ones who are willing to adapt to change instantly, quickly, and faster. With waterfall, a lot of projects will fail because we would start this project maybe 2 years before. It could be building a portal for a school, like a public school, a county school, and we started 2 years ago, right? And then like a lot of things have just changed, right? Or it could even be a mobile app, right, that we started 2 years ago, and now it's like no one is even using BlackBerry anymore, right? The operating system, Apple keeps updating that. No one is even using that app anymore, right? We've all moved on, right? And it's like after 2 years, and then we're just because of the waterfall system, we're just finishing that project after 2 years, and now it's a waste, right? Between 1993 and 2012, right, 93% of federal government projects, right, failed because of waterfall, because of the fact that they couldn't switch and they couldn't change, right? It's not that there is no change with waterfall, but it's just that we've got to finish one step before we can finish another. So for us to make any change, right, to be able to adapt to the changing market of the consumers, would have to go to the very beginning, the very first step, right? And the first step could take us 3 months. Another step could take us 3 months. Another step could take us 6 months. So it's like we've got to go back to 9 months of work before we can make any change. And in most instances, some of those projects fail, right? Waterfall can be beneficial in other industries, such as home construction, right? We'd have to finish up, the foundation before we can do another thing. But then in that instance, we could already be shopping for, the toilet system. We could already be shopping for the boards. We could already be shopping for the cabinets, right? Even as we're doing the foundation. So Agile is still very useful in home construction as well. So now, what is Agile? Agile is the exact opposite of waterfall, right? Agile is from the word agility, right? The ability to change, quickly, to adapt to change, right? To do things in iteration and incremental. Pretty much, Agile is the ability to work incrementally. So we're getting tiny little things done, right? In a very fast pace, right? So we're not focusing on finishing everything at once before going to the next step. We're trying to focus on value. What's value, right? And then we're constantly in communication with our users. We're constantly in communication with our end users, right? So that we can see how we can cater to them. So we're constantly in communication. So that means that when they don't want something, right, we're able to adapt and change quickly. That's what Agile does. So it helps all of these big companies like Amazon, right? If they release something and users don't like it, maybe Amazon puts like a search button maybe on the left, right? And then they try to see how users interact. Maybe they're getting a lot of calls from their call center. I can't find the search button. I don't understand it. Amazon, right, can quickly change the search button and put it in another place where it might be more visible, and their end users can be able to relate with it as well. It could be that, Juneteenth is coming up right now. With Agile, right, Amazon can quickly, do sales and put it on their website, in preparation for Juneteenth. But then with waterfall, it's like we've got to start that process for like 6 months prior to, rolling out maybe sales for Juneteenth and then putting it on your website. Agile lets us focus on value at the fastest pace, right? Focus on value while continuously, that feedback loop, continuous improvement and continuous feedback. That's pretty much it. So like I said, with SDLC, there are two popular ways of doing SDLC. And then under SDLC, which is waterfall and Agile, and then under Agile, right, there are also several ways of doing Agile, several ways to be Agile. We call them the Agile frameworks, right? So one of it is Scrum. Scrum is one way to be Agile. Another one is extreme programming. Another one is Kanban. Another very popular one is Safe. There are also other ones as well that you can also Google, but the most popular ones right now are Scrum, Kanban, and Safe. Right? Safe is for a large scale, large organization, the ability to work on multiple teams, and you got the agile release train and all of that stuff. If you guys want me to go in depth with Safe, please put it in the comment section and I'll also explain that. That could be an option for you as well. For the sake of this video, we're talking about being a Scrum Master. So Scrum, pretty much, let me highlight Scrum right now. Let's take Scrum out of Agile and let's talk about Scrum, the big picture. Scrum in 100 words is pretty much focusing on the highest value at the shortest time. That's what Scrum is about. So Scrum is the agile framework that allows us to provide value at the shortest time possible. And in Scrum, we work in sprints, right? That's the cadence for release, right? We work in sprints, or iteration. The standard sprint time frame in Scrum is 2 weeks, right? So that means we work in sprints. So that means every sprint, right, we release something, right? We have work. We have something to show to our end users, to our customers that we've done. So we try to we produce a shippable product after every 2 weeks. Some teams do 4 weeks, right? Some 1 week, but the standard industry practice that you really see is 2 weeks. So when someone asks you, how long is your sprint for? Oh, 2 weeks. And you will hear me use sprints or iteration interchangeably. It means the exact same thing, right? So remember, because we only have 2 weeks to produce a shippable product, guess what? If you've got 2 weeks to just produce something, maybe an item, you're gonna think about what's of the highest priority, right? Hey, what can I do in this short time? What's of the highest priority, and what can I do, in the short time? What will provide the highest priority? What will provide the highest value, right, in the short time? And that's what we're trying to do, so we can be able to, meet up with the ever-changing needs of our consumers. So that's pretty much what Scrum is. So like I said, we work in iterations in Scrum. So I follow the exact same phases that I talked about with the SDLC, which is, requirement gathering. We talk about design. We talk about development. We talk about implementation. We talk about maintenance. We follow all of those things as well in Scrum. So pretty much Scrum is, we have different ceremonies in Scrum, and we have different roles in Scrum as well. So I would then talk about the Scrum Master. So the ceremonies that we have in Scrum are, number one, and before we talk about the ceremonies in Scrum, let's talk about something also that I feel like you should know as a Scrum Master in Agile, which also ties into Scrum, is that Scrum and Agile, they value transparency. So I had one of my students, because I do teach class on how to be a Scrum Master, Scrum Master training, and one of them actually coined an acronym that I find very valuable, and I've been using it in my other classes, and she called it TIDE. So pretty much Agile values transparency, which is that in Agile there's no hierarchy, right? It's not that they're not leaders in Agile, but there's just no hierarchy. We'll believe, right, that we should all be open, right, and have open conversations, right, continuous improvement, right, so that we can be able to deliver at the fastest pace, right? If we had hierarchy, you have to go through this, you have to go through that, that would slow down a lot of our work. And that's the best type of leadership, which is where the Scrum Master comes in, right? Servant leadership, right, where we see each other as one, we see each other as equal, right? They're leaders, right, but we lead by example as Scrum Masters. If you're right here and you like to control people, you're very controlling, being a Scrum Master is not for you. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna say that outright. It's not for you. So Agile values transparency, right, where we all know what we're working on, right? Each other. I know what this person, team A member, is working on. I know what team B member is working on. No one is hiding. Do you know how beneficial that is? Team member is not available, right? I can fill in, I can cover up for that person because I know what they're working on, right? And that does not disrupt the work, right? Because we have to deliver at a very fast pace. We can't afford to work in silos. So transparency is very, very important in Agile, in Scrum. Another thing also is inspection, right? We inspect. We see Scrum is based off of empiricism, which is experience, right? We see what we've done before and we see how we can improve it. We learn from our mistakes, right? So in inspection, that's how we get into empiricism, right? We inspect our processes. What are our processes? Are we delivering the highest value? Are we catering to our customers? Are we delivering at a fast pace? Are we following the Agile principles, right? So that's another thing. Then the last one is when we inspect, we try to adapt, right? We try to, put in those changes, right? All of the findings that we've identified from our inspection, we try to emulate those, those findings, and we try to, put them back into our processes to see how we can improve, right? And then there's something that we call the Agile principles, right? Which talks about pretty much customer collaboration, right? Over, processes and contract negotiation. So we're not saying that processes are not good, right? We're not saying that it's not good to follow. We're just saying that we value, customer collaboration, talking with the customers every day. We're constantly in communication with the customers, with the end users, so we can be able to produce and provide value, right? As opposed to just providing what we think is value. We're in communication with the people who are the eventual users, the business owners, so we can provide that, the best value. We can provide value, and we can provide it at a very high pace, right? And then you hear things like, working software over documentation. We want a software that's working, that all of us can work together on and understand, as opposed to just dumping the documentation on my desk right now and saying, yo, I'm done with building the software. I want you to go figure it out. So we value documentation, but we value having something that we can all be able to use without having to go through, reading and documentation, because we're constantly in talks. So pretty much, there are a lot of them out there that you can also read up as well. I don't want this video to be extremely long. All right. So now now we understand transparency, we understand, communication, continuous feedback, right? We're continuously seeing how we can improve ourselves. Ceremonies in Scrum. So how do we do this inspection and adaptation and transparency, right? We've got ceremonies that help guide us into how we can ensure that, we are emulating the Agile principles pretty much. So the first ceremony is the sprint planning meeting, and there are 5 ceremonies. Sprint planning meeting, which is pretty much self-explanatory. Like I mentioned, a sprint is pretty much 2 weeks, right, where we deliver a shippable product. And there's something we call backlog in Agile. So a backlog is a list of everything that needs to be done for a product to be considered done, right? Everything, I want to cook, right? I need my stove, I need my food, I need my this, I need my that. Everything that needs to be done, right? For me to consider that product done is where it's the backlog. That's where we store all of those ideas. I need to do this, we need to do that, we need to do that. That's a backlog, right? Then we've got the sprint backlog, and from it's pretty much self-explanatory. Sprint backlog is everything that needs to be done for a sprint, within a sprint. So on the first day of the sprint, we've got the sprint planning meeting, where we pretty much, have a meeting. The team members come together and have a meeting on what we want to do for that sprint, right? So we all look at it together, and then we decide on, okay, here is what's going to add value, and then we decide, and then we put those things into the sprint backlog, and then we start to work. Now we've got the sprint backlog. Scrum recommends, I think, 2 hours of the sprint backlog. It's usually an hour for me, and that works. So pretty much, we talk about our sprint goal. We commit to it. We sometimes assign, work to each other at that sprint meeting, and then we allow people, pretty much, choose work as the sprint goes along. Well, pretty much we assign work to each other. We talk about our sprint goal, so that as a team we're working towards a common goal. The next meeting is the daily stand-up, or the daily Scrum, right? Which is pretty much a 15-minute meeting. Scrum is very strict about this. It's a 15-minute meeting, right, where we pretty much discuss the progress of our work within a sprint. So we ask 3 questions. What did you work on yesterday? What are you working on right now? What do you intend to work on? And any blockers, pretty much. So, because we have to deliver at a very fast pace, we want to eliminate or remove anything that would stand in the way of us delivering at the end of our sprint. So that's why we have this meeting daily, so we can report any blocker or impediment, right? And then we can escalate those blockers so we can remove them and move on with our work. So those are the 3 questions. We don't talk about how to resolve blockers at this meeting, right? Because it's only a 15-minute meeting, right? We can take those offline, or we can have another meeting to discuss how we can remove blockers. But we just report the blocker so that, all the team members and the Scrum Master, who's the one who facilitates removing the blocker, is aware of a blocker pretty much. So that's what we do at that 15-minute meeting. Just, go around and tell us what you're working on, blockers, and what you intend to work on, so everyone is aware of what's going on. Another meeting that we also have is the sprint review meeting, which is pretty much where we come together at the end of the sprint to review what we've done, to show our work to our stakeholders, to the product owner, or even sometimes you can even invite the entire world to come and see what the team has worked on. We sometimes call it the demo, right? Where we demo the work that we have done so people can actually see. In this meeting, we get stakeholder feedback, we get business owner feedback. They can say, oh, this is great. Oh, can we also have this? Can we also have that? So that we can put that into consideration at the next sprint or during the next sprint, so that we can continue to deliver value. Now, the other meeting that we also have, which is one of my favorite as a Scrum Master is the sprint retrospective meeting. Pretty much self-explanatory. It's where we go back, we retrospect, we go back to see what we've done within that sprint and how we can be better. And we try to ask 3 questions, although there are different templates that you can use. But for a starter, I would encourage you to stick with the 3 questions. Pretty much, what went well during the last sprint? You know, what didn't go well, and what can we improve upon, right? We're constantly trying to see how we can improve our processes, so continuous improvement. So our feedback loop has to be on point. So that's what the purpose of that meeting is for. That meeting sometimes can be a little heated, right? Because people are trying to speak their mind. Remember how Agile is about openness and transparency, but it's a very valuable meeting, right? Because it'll help us improve our processes on how we can continue to deliver faster, how we can work together as a team, and how we can feel great as a team as well, working together and working towards a common goal. And then another meeting also, which is not really categorized as a Scrum meeting, but it's a very important meeting, is the backlog refinement meeting, or a backlog grooming meeting, which is pretty much where we prioritize our backlog. Remember, a backlog is a list of everything that needs to be done for a project. So the product owner would come and tell us, and I'll talk about product owner, what's important, what's of high value, what's of high priority. So when I look at the backlog of a team, right, and I look at the top of the backlog, what it means to me as a Scrum Master is that the items on the top, or the item on the top of the backlog, is the highest priority, is the item that has the highest priority, and it's what the team should focus on next. And when I look at the bottom of the backlog, it means that that's of the lowest priority and the team doesn't have to focus on it yet. So that's what that meeting is for. At that meeting, we look at the backlog and we discuss, we refine it, we try to reprioritize and prioritize based off of the feedback that we got maybe at our sprint review, or just feedback that we got from the business, to determine what's of priority and what we should focus on next. So the product owner is the one who will let us know that. So those are pretty much the meetings. So that's every week, at least an hour every week, depending on the dynamics and how large the team is. Now let's talk about the Scrum roles. So Scrum defines 3 roles. Just 3 roles are defined in Scrum. The first one is a Scrum Master, which is why you're probably here. A Scrum Master is an Agile evangelist. Remember how I talked about Agile values conversations, collaborations about processes, we value transparency, all of these meetings that I talked about. The Scrum Master is pretty much the Agile coach, the Agile evangelist, right, who guides the team based off of the Scrum and the Agile principles, right, the Agile guide, right, who ensures that the team is following those Agile principles, that the team is focusing on what's value. So the Scrum Master is in charge of the how. How are we doing the work, right? We've got work to do. How are we doing the work? Are we doing the work to ensure that we're delivering high value? Are we doing the work to ensure that we're delivering the items of highest priority? Are we doing the work to ensure that we're not working in silos, right? All of that stuff. The Scrum Master is the one in charge of it. So the Scrum Master does this by facilitating the daily stand-up, the retrospective, the sprint review, and sometimes the backlog refinement, right, and the sprint planning as well. So the Scrum Master will facilitate. Another thing that the Scrum Master does is also to escalate and facilitate the removal of blockers, right? The Scrum Master wants to ensure that nothing is standing in the way of the team, right? That the work is moving, the throughput, the work is moving smoothly and fast as well. So the Scrum Master would facilitate, right? The Scrum Master does not remove blockers. The Scrum Master facilitates how to remove blockers. So this person says, oh, my computer, my computer is not working, my system, I can get into the repo, I can connect, to the repo, right? The Scrum Master, would facilitate, oh, what do we need to do? Oh, I think you need to reach out to HR, IT rather, you need to reach out to the help desk. Okay, so who should be the POC? The Scrum Master will facilitate that and also follow up with that team member to ensure that the blocker has been removed. And if it's a major blocker that cannot be removed instantly, the Scrum Master will communicate to the product owner and the business owners for them to be aware that we might not be able to deliver that work, right, at the end of the sprint because of this blocker, right, that we have. So pretty much staying on top of things. You've got to be organized if you want to be a great Scrum Master. You've got to have great communication skills. You've got to have people skills. You've got to have empathy as well towards people if you want to make a great Scrum Master. All right, another role that Scrum defines also is the product owner, right? So some people might like to call them the CEO, right? So that's the liaison between the business and the technical team, right? So the product owner is the one who has the mind of the business, right? The one who tells us what to build. Remember, the Scrum Master is the one who tells us how to build. The product owner tells us what to build, right? Because we don't know. We don't work with that. We probably don't work with the business, right? Or maybe we do, but they're on the business side. So that's the representative from the business side who tells us what is value, what to focus on, who tells us, oh, for instance, we're trying to build a portal system for Prince George's County, an online portal system for Prince George's County public schools, because we're trying to, respond to COVID. COVID happened and everyone had to start learning. No one knew that COVID was coming. Because of Agile, right? We'll be able to respond to that and build a portal, right, instantly. And for the portal, it might just be, as a student, I want to be able to access, my homework, right? As a teacher, I want to be able to upload homework and lesson plans. And as a parent, I want to be able to track my child's, results and how my child is doing at school. So I want to focus on value. What would be the highest priority for a teacher? What would you like to see to start learning or to start teaching your students instantly, right? During this pandemic? I just want to be able to upload my lesson plans, right? And be able to grade as well. The student, what would you like to see, right? The student probably doesn't want to see, something like, activities coming up for school, or meal plan and all of that stuff, because those are not important right now. They're home, right? The student just wants to see, right, that homework has been updated, and then grades as well, that their grades are available. And as a parent, right, you also want to see, I don't think I want to see, things like parade days coming up and all of that stuff. I don't think I care about those. What's most important to me, right, is the fact that I want to see my students grade. Every other thing can come, right? Those are nice to have. They can come later. But because we're Agile, we're trying to focus on value so that we can at least people can get started with learning, right? So the product owner is the one who's going to tell us what to focus on, right? The third role that Scrum defines is the development team. Those are the people that are doing the work, the development team, right? And depending on the project, they're pretty much always dying. Depending on the project, we can have developers, we can have a front-end developers, we can have back-end developers. On the team, on the development team, we can have a BA, right? We can have testers, we can have quality assurance testers, we can have UI, UX researchers, we can have DevOps engineers. We can have content writers on the development team, depending on what that project is about. And normally, a good size for a Scrum team is always like 7 to 9. That's like the average standard size. 7 to 9 team members, which could include the Scrum Master and the product owner as well. So the development team are the ones that do the work, right? So remember, they do the work, right? They're the ones doing the work. The Scrum Master is the one telling us how, right? And the Scrum Master does not enforce. The Scrum Master leads by example. The Scrum Master is a servant leader, right? There's no hierarchy in Scrum. So instead of saying, you do that, we lead by example, right? We lead by influence, right? We're leaders, yes. Well, we lead by influence, right? We don't want a situation where we, enforce, our beliefs on the team, and then it's like, it ends up, being that that's not the value that the business wants us to focus on. So that's how we do it in Scrum, right? And then the development teams are the one doing the work. So during the stand-up, it's the development teams that will go around and give the updates, what we worked on and what am I working on and all of that stuff. So that's pretty much it. I hope that this video, is of value to you. I don't want it to be too long. The next video, I'm going to try to go in depth into how you can get a job as a Scrum Master, the technical skills, the skills that you need as well as a Scrum Master, and then we'll start to look at other areas as well, like Kanban and SAFe as well. Please remember to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you can be able to follow this series. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.